All right, good morning, afternoon, and evening, students. This is Mr. Martirone here. We are reviewing the French Revolution. All right, so if you guys remember in class, we discussed the three estates. We discussed the clergy, the first estate, the nobles, and the second estate. Well, today we're going to focus on the problems facing France, and we're going to talk a little bit about the everyone else category. So here to do that is Mr. Brown, who's going to talk about the third estate.
Okay, hello everybody. Um, just to go into the category of everybody else, this this estate itself breaks up. It's a very diverse group. It breaks up into three different groups. The top group is the bourgeoisie, the middle group is the rural peasants, and the lower group is the very bottom of the group is the poorest members. A lot of them are your urban city workers. All right. Um, the bourgeoisie is made up of bankers, merchants, manufacturers, lawyers, and doctors. These are a lot of your professionals. In our society today, they might fall a little bit more into the higher middle class, upper class. During the old regime in France, they fall into the top of the lower class. The second is the rural peasants. This is the majority of the third estate, and they are basically the farmers of their society. And then lowest are the poorest members, again, the city workers. Many of them are unemployed because of the conditions in France at this point in time. And as a result, a lot of them turn to begging and a lot of crime.
Now, the big problem that we have facing France is that the best jobs in French society were reserved for the first and the second estate. Okay, so those nobles enjoyed good jobs, good job opportunities with good pay. The heavy tax burden fell to the peasants who owed fees and services to the nobles. So you had some of the poorest people paying the most in taxes. And the third minor problem that plagued France was the idea that the Enlightenment, which we spent a little bit of time talking about a couple weeks ago, those ideas of John Locke and Thomas Hobbes, those ideas are trickling into the people of the Third Estate, and they eventually begin to question the old guard in France, and they begin to challenge the authority of the First and Second Estate.
So while all of this is brewing, let's take a look at this pie graph here as well. All right, and if you can see, you have the orange, you have the red, and the blue. And on the right, you can see it breaks down for the first estate, the second estate, and the third estate. Okay, so the 1%, the orange, is what makes up the clergy. All right, that first estate. The 2%, the red, that's what makes up the second estate, which is the nobles. The everyone else category is the third estate, and they make up 97% of the population in France at this time during the French Revolution. The major problem facing French society during this time is that the everyone else category, they actually only own a small portion of the overall wealth in France, whereas the other 3% own a majority of the wealth. And what's beyond that is the 97%, the everyone else category, the third estate, they're the only ones paying taxes. And the 3% richest aren't paying any taxes at all.
Now, another major problem that plagues France is the financial crisis. All right, and there's a nice little graphic of Mr. Martirone pouring all of his money away. France was in a financial crisis in part because of something called deficit spending. DEFICIT, spending. Okay, make sure you star or highlight that. It's going to be a key term that we're going to talk about throughout the year. Deficit spending is the idea where a government spends more money than it takes in. And tomorrow in class, we're going to take a look at the deficit clock that the United States has, and we'll be examining this process of deficit spending. Additionally, the government has to deal with this issue. So they either raise taxes, decrease spending, or they do both. So this is the issue that Louis XVI was confronted with. The nobles The people who wanted to maintain the status quo, they didn't want to end their tax-free status. So Louis is plagued by this huge problem of deficits. What should we do? Now, Mr. Brown, let me ask you a quick question. What did France spend most of its money on?
France ended up spending most of their money on to help our cause in the American Revolution. All right, in order to actually stick it to Britain, Louis puts a lot of money into the cause of America breaking away from Britain's rule.
Well, that's exactly right. And on top of the deficit that was plaguing France, in 1789 there was also a very bad harvest. As a result, because of the laws of supply and demand, the farmers of France had to increase their prices. So now the poorest members of the Third Estate couldn't afford even the bare necessities of bread to survive. All right. Please make sure you have this in your French Revolution packet. We're going to expand a little bit more on deficit spending in a real-world context tomorrow in class. If you need to watch this video again, please do so. If you have any questions, you can post them to Mr. Brown or I on Edmodo.